Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon himself, James Bale. Jimbo, that was a bit of a roller coaster of tone and speed and everything as I went through the introduction here. I went up and down.
Your cadence was all over the map there, mate. But, welcome back to another podcast. Another day, another podcast. These things come around quick, don't they, eh? I swear my whole week is anchored around this Thursday morning, which is when we record, it comes out on a Friday. But it's it sneaks up on you in the week, and then once it's done, there's kind of like a relief. It feels like the weekend started, just even though there's a day between now and the weekend.
It's very true, like, because again, we do this for Thursday nights Australia time, and it is always like once the podcast is done, and then because after I've got to upload everything and send the notes to our editor and everything, but it's like, okay, that's that part's done now. Then it is almost like Friday's always a bit of an easier day for me, not always, but yeah, it is. It's almost like I know what you mean, but mate, it's been a week for me. I'm not even going to let you ask me how it's been, because I have confirmed that I'm going to Kona. I am going to be on the ground for a week, get to watch the first time they've run the two separate races. Bob Babbitt from Breakfast with Bob actually hooked me up with some very, very reasonably priced accommodation, which was fantastic. So thank you very much, Mr. Babbitt, for that. I'm going to Kona, mate. So I am super excited about that. It's going to be epic.
Good, man. When do you fly out?
I fly out on the 3rd of October. Again, time zones break my head a little bit. So I leave Australia time or Sydney time 7:30 p.m. Monday, and then I arrive in Kona at 3:30 p.m. Monday, because you jump that date line sort of thing. Like Kona, Hawaii and Australia are actually on a really, really similar time zone. It's one of the easiest international trips actually to make, because the time zones are so similar, just a day behind.
You'll be obviously you'll be roaming around with a microphone getting loads of podcast content, won't you? That'll be all you're doing over there.
I don't know if that's going to be necessarily the case. I was thinking about sort of how to approach, and I'm going to try, but I'm not going to be walking around with the microphone all the time. But I was thinking I might try to get a few of the coaches on. I'd like to talk with some of the coaches behind the athletes, because we know what it's like with the athletes in a big event. They sort of want to be focusing on their bigger race, and they don't necessarily want to be being pestered by people like us. But yeah, we'll see. I'm going to go to a few of those Breakfast with Bob things and see if I can grab a few sound bites. But yeah, I'm very much there as the athlete manager with Joe and Magnus, who I think we've got, there's a potential to have some very good results over there. But I'm just excited to go back to the Big Island. It's a great place. I'm taking my bike, so I do a bit of training over there. And we've also got a bunch of MX members who are racing, so it'll be good to see that. But on that note, James, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by 4-time world champion, 2-time Kona winner, Chris McCormack. Mate, what's something you like about the community?
Well, it's got to be your trip to Kona, isn't it? And the fact that we're going to have a lot of members racing over there, and there's going to be an opportunity for a catch-up. I think you're going to be hosting quite the event, aren't you?
Always, mate. Again, anybody who wants to come for a ride, they can. I'm not going to be slowing down there. You can hold on my wheel, or you can get fucked. What did Joe say?
Or your rear derailleur can break, and you can just go home.
Again, I want to a sign of how good this MX endurance community is we've got the MX WhatsApp we talk a lot about, and we were talking about Kona maybe 3 weeks ago. And I think I said, look, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get to Kona because it's so expensive. And I had 2 separate MX members who are going to be in Kona offer for me to stay with them in Kona. And again, these are people that I've never met in person before. I've only ever known through the internet. And I really it really is like those sort of examples are what makes this community so special, is that you can have these people that, will literally just offer you a place to stay when you could be spending $10,000 for a week of accommodation and stuff. So.
Yeah, man. It's a pricey endeavor, eh?
Again, thank you, Bob Babbitt. For me, it's basically what I expect. I think I got a room for like $250 a night in the nice hotel. So it's not too. It's pretty sort of similar to what we spent in St. George. So not too bad. Yeah, because it's funny. I put up a post out. I'm going to Kona, and everyone's sending me like money bags and you must take in a mortgage. I was like, honestly, guys, it's really wasn't that big a deal to be honest, because I think what Bob said, there was a medical conference or something that had booked out this hotel and they've cancelled it. Again, why would you put a medical conference on in Kona the same week as the Ironman World Champs? I don't know.
No.
But yeah, they had rooms available, and I managed to get one. So yeah, I'm genuinely excited to be there for it. I think we're going to see some absolutely fire racing this year. I love Kona. I went in 2019, and I think I said after I went, I expect I'm going to be going there a lot more. Then we had the pandemic, so yeah, it's going to be good to be there and see the first time we have the 2 days of racing. So yeah,
indeed. And we've both revised our picks slightly, haven't we, with various news that's come out. But we'll get into that later in the podcast.
Mate, we are going to get it. The curse of the podcast. How bad was that last week?
Struck us down last week, didn't it?
Well, mate, to be honest, I'm not going to lead with that. I'm not going to lead with that piece of news this week because I want to take a moment to acknowledge something that isn't very good that happened in the world of triathlon last week. And this one hits close to home because a lot of people that I know have been personally influenced by this. I've raced a lot in New Zealand. I have a lot of friends in the New Zealand triathlon community, and a New Zealand Kiwi pro triathlete has recently died in a mountain biking accident. I got this little summary from Sarah Wasner-Flynn at Triathlete Magazine, and it basically says, Emily McNaughton, a professional triathlete from New Zealand, died on September 11th as a result of injuries sustained in a mountain bike accident the previous Sunday. McNaughton, who was 28, is being remembered as a shining light who had just started to stamp her mark as a professional triathlete. After achieving success as a national field hockey player, McNaughton, who recently posted a video of her riding her mountain bike and shared her love of off-road riding on her Instagram feed, raced her first triathlon in 2018, and just 3 years later placed third at Ironman New Zealand, her pro debut at the distance. McNaughton's funeral was yesterday, and guests were encouraged to ride their bikes to the service in her honor. Now, again, I just wanted to. It's always tragic when we hear about somebody that, obviously, a member of the triathlon community who passes away. But 28 is extremely young, and like I said, a lot of my friends have been personally affected by this. And I think it's important just to say to everybody in that community, as well as Emily's family, our thoughts are with you, and it's tragic. So,
yeah, absolutely, it's no good, and we're thinking of you all.
But we're now going to go into that piece of news now that we literally missed out on by hours last week, and that is the confirmation or the breaking news, I guess you want to call it, that Alistair Brownlee is out for the rest of 2022. Now, I got this summary from Rob Slade at 220 Triathlon, and he says, Alistair Brownlee hasn't had the best of luck this year, with injury and illness ruling him out of both the 2021 Ironman World Championships in St. George and his much-anticipated sub-7 attempt in June. And it looks as though the bad luck is set to continue, with the British athlete announcing on Instagram that he's going to be out for the rest of the season with injury. He said, the annus horribilis continues. Unfortunately, I've got a stress fracture in my femur and won't be racing for the rest of the year. The last few months have been more than a little testing, but I'll do everything I can to work out what the problem is and be back training soon. Brownlee returned to racing in July after an injury ruled him out for much of the first half of the year. He looked in great shape when competing at the PTO Canadian Open until he came unstuck with stomach issues on the run. He subsequently lined up on the start line at Ironman 70.3 Swansea and took the win, before setting a British record in Sweden at Ironman Kalmar to secure his place in Kona. Unfortunately, the news means we won't see Brownlee go up against the Norwegians on the Big Island, leaving Joe Skipper and Dave McNamee as Britain's main hopes in the men's race. James Bale.
Yeah, I mean, it's no good, is it? Because last week we were just after we'd finished just after we'd uploaded the podcast, I will say. You sent me a message saying Brownlee's out of Kona, and I'd logged on to Facebook because I don't have notifications on. I logged on to Facebook to send you exactly the same message, and it was already there waiting for me. I am gutted to hear this, but it's a bloody roller coaster with this man, isn't it? Because one minute we're saying, I think he's a bit breakable, and things just keep happening. Then he comes back and has a tremendous result in Ironman Kalmar, and you're like, Brownlee's finally turned the corner, and he's back, and he's going to be going to Kona, and he's my pick for the race. He was my pick for the race. And then this happens, and it's like, oh my God, man, it's a real shame because no one wants to see someone who could be so influential on the race out of it with an injury like this, and the stress fracture is no good, and it'll take some recovering from. I don't know, man. It's just, you're back to thinking, well, how long can this go on for?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, mate. I've spoken to a lot of people about this throughout the week. Some pros, some people in the know, yourself, and like it did remind me a lot of that day in St. George when I was out on the bike, out riding, and you messaged me, and I didn't get it until it was like Brownlee's out, and I remember this not, again, it's not personally affecting me, but I could feel my excitement levels for the race drop. Like there was a physical feeling in my body going, I'm actually not as excited about this race anymore because Alistair Brownlee's not part of it. And this is the same, mate. Like it was when Jan said he's definitely not there. I was like, fucking hell, I really wanted to see that. And then, as you said, that progression we've seen with Alistair Brownlee coming back from that injury and have those two, what I think are, very, very, very sophisticated performances from himself at Swansea and Kalmar, where it really felt like he'd sort of learned his lessons and was evolving as a long course athlete.
Yeah.
To have this come up, and again, relatively, I mean, we've normally got our finger on the pulse a little bit, or ear to the ground. We can hear whispers. I mean, I'd heard bits and pieces, but like this really sort of shocked me. Like I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I don't think we'd heard really anything that he was going to pull out of Kona. I sometimes wonder, like, are there any other sports like this? You follow any other sport, soccer, football, American football, and you're like, oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing my favorite team play the other team. That's going to be a good match. Oh, it turns out they've pulled out because of this. Oh, I'm really looking forward to my favorite, I don't know, F1 driver racing, and then they've pulled out, and it feels like our sport is constantly disintegrating in front of our eyes, mate. For the last 4 years, every race I've looked forward to, I swear to God, at least 3 or 4 people have pulled out of it and made those races less than they should have been.
Looking at this, one of the big things, I sort of, when I was editing last week, I listened to what you were talking with Sam about, and I think you asked him the question, like, are we seeing too many races? And while obviously Ali hasn't been able to go to the majority of races, and there have been a number of athletes who've been able to, Christian Blumenfeld, for example, who's been able to go through everything, I can't help but wonder, looking at how Ali had to, bounce back from the injury in the first place, then went to Swansea to check if it's okay. Then he has to go to Kalmar to get the slot to Kona. You can't help but wonder, does that sort of play part of it? Like, and I mean, just, I'm always saying, I don't always have the answers, but it's like Alistair Brownlee, I kind of feel like, just give him a slot to Kona. Like maybe don't make him do that race. Just get him to Kona so he doesn't, I mean, and again, I don't know what caused the stretch fracture, but yeah, mate, it's fucking devastating actually. And again, I'm genuinely scared that this might be it. Like at some point you're going to have to go, I'm sick of banging my head against a brick wall. My body doesn't want to keep doing this.
And we've lived through like Christmas 2019. You and I were so excited for the golden year of 2020 and all the racing and the head-to-heads we were going to see. And it feels to me like we've lived through a golden generation of possibilities without actually seeing any of those possibilities come to fruition. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we've
so many races.
Yeah.
But you think so many races that we thought we were going to like, and let's see, look, so we talked about there was going to be there's going to be Olympics, and there was going to be, I think Christian had come out well before the Olympics saying that he wanted to do the double. We knew about that for a long time, but we had the Olympics, you had the Kona, and then you also had like sub and all these things. And then it was like Ironman California, the Jan versus Gustav race got cancelled. And then it's like just all of these events where you get so built up, and then and then Jan's out, then Ali's out, then Joe's out. Like all these people keep dropping out. And I mean,
which race was it that Jan flew to and it just was shitting it down and windy, so they cancelled it?
California.
Which race was that? That was California, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was meant to be him versus Gustav.
Like, stop
Fucking
it.
hell, I know. It's just, we need... I saw a lot of people, I've seen a lot of commentary this week about basically saying that we're probably never going to get to see Christian race Jan at a nine distance race.
No, I don't think we will.
Fucking hell. I tell you what I was thinking today. It's like we need to, as fans of triathlon, like crowdfund, I don't know how much money, and just get them to do like a race like we had at sub 7, some match race. Christian versus Jan. Like I don't know how you make it work, but like just fucking offer them both $1 million, like $1 million each, no matter what the result. Because fuck me, I want to see that race. Like I really, really want to see that happen before, because I'm really scared that we're never going to get to see that race, and all we get to ever talk about is that who what could have been, and again for like somebody like a Jan, I guess, who's beaten Gustav, not beaten, but went fast in the Collins Cup. He's got that in the back. He's ticked that box. I've not beat him, but I've beat him. Mm-hmm. The only thing we're going to see, I guess, for a Christian is he going to go out there and try to break Jan's course record as well, you're not here, but I'm going to beat your record. Like I guess Jan did in 2019 when he didn't get the opportunity to beat Patrick Lang because Patrick pulled out.
No,
and he's like,
good for the audience. It's no good. I get it. But as an audience member, you're just like, oh, whoop-de-fucking do. I didn't get to see you race each other, guys. Any other sport, I swear to God, they don't get this much disappointment.
It was also, I was speaking with Joe this week about it. I said to Joe, mate, Ali's dad's like, yeah, I know. He spoke to him. And he said the worst part for Joe is he was talking with Ali about how they were going to try to isolate the Norwegians on the course. Like they were almost coming up with a plan about what they could do on the run to sort of battle it. And I'm like, yeah, mate, like that's the shit as well, because you know that, again, you talk about an athlete that could have an impact on a race, and whatever you want to say about his performance in Kona last time, but you put his swim bike together in that field, it would have changed the way the race is going to be very different now without Alistair Brownlee in it. And I think it is going to play again. I still think that Ali would have won St. George if he had done it.
Without question, even if he wasn't firing, even if Alistair Brownlee goes to Kona isn't firing, the spectre of him being there changes the race. The way people expect him to perform changes the race, because they respond to the menace that he is on the course, the expected menace that he is on the course.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid, isn't it? Unreal. But we're going to be doing we're going to do a full Kona. We're going to do a full Kona preview next week, aren't we? Because you'll be our man on the ground. We'll have to sort out time zones or whatever and record whenever we can. But before we do that preview, I'm saying my pick for the men's race has changed, obviously, because Alistair Brownlee's not in it, and I sometimes drop the ball. But picking an athlete that's not in the race is even beyond my levels of ball dropping. But I think for me, Magnus Ditlev is going to win Kona now.
Mate, I'm scared to. I'm very scared to pick a outright winner. I think there's too much that could happen. But Magnus is definitely one of my picks. I'd put. I can't. There's probably 5 people that I could pick. The person I'm most curious to see how they perform is Gustav, because we've seen, again, it's funny how Christian gets the share of the limelight, but I'm very curious to see how Gustav goes, because, again, talking with the team behind the Norwegians in St. George, they were all saying that if Gustav was here, he would have beat Christian by 10 minutes. So I think I'm very curious, but Magnus is, again, especially after the race we're going to talk about later.
Well, I'm going to put even more on the line. I think we're going to see him take to the race in Kona very, very well, and I think we're going to see the birth of a new run of victories out of Magnus Ditlev. I think he's got that in him.
I don't disagree. I think he's.
I would be. Don't get me wrong. The Norwegians are great, and I could be wrong, but I just think I think he's got that kind of racing down. We'll see that.
I want to see someone actually. I want to see like I just hope we see an actual battle. Like I want it to actually come down to people running together and like pushing each other. Again, we'll talk about the Pete because I have some thoughts around races, but we've spoken long about that one. The next one is actually the opposite of the last piece of news, James, and this is something that I believe we've willed into existence somehow. And that is the news that Lucy Charles-Barclay. I think you'll find
it was me, wasn't it? Didn't I say that? Did I say there was a good chance based on?
I'll give you credit.
Yeah.
It's funny because, as you all know, listeners and viewers, at the start of this episode, I give James a series of nicknames. And when we have to do the recording, we have to give ourselves a name on the system that we use. And for the last month, James has insisted on using Jimmy the Big Man every time we do it. And it's like, I'm surprised you keep trying to give me fuel to give you yet another nickname. So yes, Jimmy the Big Man did in fact.
I don't even think about it. It's just I typed it in once and it's auto there, so I just click it. I don't even consider changing it.
I do appreciate Jimmy with an I at the end, not the Y. But anyway, I got this from Jonathan Turner at Try 24/7, and he says, just a few short months ago, there was no guarantees that Lucy Charles-Barclay would race again this season. But now she set her sights on the so far elusive Ironman World Championships victory in Kona. Her comeback from a lengthy spell on the sidelines due to a hip stress fracture could hardly have been more impressive, as she was crowned the World Triathlon long-distance champion in Chamonix. After that, she nominated a successful defense of her Ironman 70.3 world title at St. George as her main target for the rest of 2022. But she also said the sky's the limit, and she confirmed a return to the Big Island is very much on the agenda. She added on her Instagram account, guess what? I won't be missing out on another shot at the world title on the Big Island. And then on Wednesday, her stories feed featured images from Kona tagged, we are back, let the Kona spam begin. In the video, she adds, there's obviously one big thing looming over me, which is trying to win the Ironman World Championships in Kona. At the beginning of this year, when I got told that I had this injury, I actually ruled Kona out. Being on the start line this year is a huge win in itself, and I know I will go into the race and give it everything I've got. And if it's not enough to win, it's not enough. And I have to remember the journey that I've been on this year. Huge news, James Bale.
Yeah, I think that's really good news as well. It's really good news. It expands the women's field. You know, it adds an extra dimension to the racing, plus adds an extra narrative to the whole thing because of the comeback that she's been on, the injuries she had, the journey she's been on, performance at the US Open. I think, you know, this can only be a positive. I just, you know, I hope it's a positive for her as well, and that she's in a position where the injury is well and truly dealt with, and she's back racing at full beans. Because you know, in my mind, she is one of the athletes that can truly give Danny a run for her money when on form, and I'd like to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a fully fit Lucy, I think a fully fit Lucy in St George earlier this year probably wouldn't have beat Danny. I think Danny was on another level at that race, and I know that Danny's been in Maui for quite a period of time. She opted not to go to the PTO race, but then I look at that PTO race, which again I keep threatening we're going to talk about. I have a lot of thoughts about that race. If you look at the people that beat Lucy, we're talking about Taylor and Nash Gentle, both short/middle distance specialists. So if you look at the people who were there who were going to be going to Kona, Lucy excelled. Like she excelled compared to all of them, and you assume that she was probably in the middle of a big block, like a lot of them. I've seen a lot of comments around some of the athletes who didn't perform that well, maybe being in a big block. I'm guessing Lucy was too, and I think that's a really good sign. So again, I say this. I think any race with Lucy in it is a race I want to see, and much like an Alistair Brownlee, the impact that she's going to have on the dynamic of the race is very significant because of that swim power and that bike power that she has.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be a Fenella Langridge leading out of the water like it was, I think, in St Georgia. It's just a completely different dynamic. And Danny's not going to be able to just go at the front all day. She's going to be chasing Lucy most of the day, I think. And it's going to that impact on the whole race is going to be fascinating. So yeah, I'm pumped for this.
So can you pick a winner before we do our detailed preview next week? Who do you think? Who's your money on?
Daniela Reef, mate. It's Danny Reef. Yeah. Danny Reef.
Same.
I can't. I learnt my lesson, mate. I learnt my lesson. Yeah. I'm going to pick it forever. After the races, the performances we've seen her do of late, Collins Cup and Kona. Not Kona, St George. Like I picked her all the way up to St George, and I said I give up. It's not Danny, and she proved me exceptionally wrong. So I'm back on. I'm just going to, anytime Daniela Reef races now, I'm going to pick Daniela Reef because she's just come back. I think she came back with a point to prove, and we saw what that win meant for her in St George. And you know that she'd want to get another one on the Big Island. So I think she's going to be very dangerous. But then my podium would probably be Lucy and Annie, I guess, or maybe Laura Philipp and Annie Haug. It's a flip of a coin for me at the moment. And we know Annie Haug, has proven herself there. Whereas Laura Philipp, I think she's.
Is Ellie Salthouse racing?
Not Kona. She doesn't do Ironmans.
No, I didn't think she was. She messaged me this week asking if Bahrain 70.3 would have a pro field, and I said,
I've heard whispers that it might not too.
I said I'm not sure, but I would be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah, somebody else messaged me about that, and I was like, I would assume so too. I'll have to find out, but yeah. I guess again, we'll talk about her later on the episode too. Totally. Moving on. I keep threatening because get ready, get the popcorn out. Now I don't know. So did you follow any of the drama? I know you didn't follow the race, but did you follow any of the drama that happened in Ironman Emilia Romagna over the weekend?
I saw a video on Twitter where someone said, "If you fancy a well-organized sportif." Yes, because we're going to talk about Emilia Romagna. So firstly, the race, there was meant to be the Ironman on the Saturday, the 70.3 on the Sunday, and there was massive storms on the Saturday. So they delayed the race. So you had suddenly the 70.3 and the Ironman happening both on the Sunday. Again, I think for the people participating, that's great. However, I got this little tidbit from Romy von Louis Schoenvel at Try Today and Tim Moria at Try Today. Huge draft party at Ironman Emilia Romagna. We've seen worse. Oh no, actually, we probably haven't. Even Ironman Barcelona is nothing compared to this. With the postponement of Ironman Emilia Romagna until Sunday due to extreme weather, Ironman Italy hosted two events on the one day, an Ironman 70.3 and the full Ironman. It didn't work out very well. Many athletes found a position in one of the huge bike packs on their 90 or 180 kilometer ride, and therefore they definitely didn't comply with the no drafting rule. Now, this video, mate, that I know you've seen us is possibly the worst case of drafting in an I don't
Iron
think you
race.
can even call it drafting. It's not draft because drafting. I think but drafting pins the. In my mind, if you say it's a draft, then it pins the responsibility on the athlete. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
the
fair.
responsibility for this was on the race for packing so many people on the course. I know there was lots of storms and they had to move it, but when you have made this decision and you've packed the course like that, the only thing to do is to say it's a non-drafting race. You cannot accuse people of drafting when they have got nowhere else to go but where they are on the road. It's just not. It's not a fair label to give it. It was just a very packed course that everyone had to ride on, and it was.
Exactly. It's no one. This is not a case of people like there was. This video that we're talking about is literally like, what do you reckon, 20 seconds long, and it's obviously it's following the women's pro race, and then coming the other way is a pack. I'm not joking, guys. 20 seconds of athletes 3 and 4 abreast. It's a fucking it's a peloton. Like, it's the only way to describe. It's a peloton.
Like
it looks like a
commuter lane in London. People just go to work.
It is. I couldn't believe, and I was thinking there's people down on the aero bars. I'm like, I would not be riding on my if I had that many people around me, I would not be on my aero bars.
I was meant to be racing this race. I had an entry to this race because I broke my ankle and didn't recover in time. I didn't get there. Now, I just saw that video and I was just like, you know what? Going over to Italy, paying the money for accommodation, travel, and then just going through the motions of that? Nah, it doesn't interest me, mate.
You know, it's funny too, because another race that happened we spoke about maybe last week was Sunny Coast 70.3. And I spoke about Matt Sweeney, the guy that I coach who did his amazing PB. And it was interesting because a lot of the photos have come out from that race and it's similar. These huge, huge draft packs on the bike. And speaking with Matt after the race, because I was like, mate, like, well done, mate. And he's like, seriously, this is bullshit. Like, I couldn't race. There's too much fucking, like, you can't not. And it's like, I actually think that's some of the people, like, there's more and more people, I think, if you look at the comments whenever I suggest draft legal racing, a lot of people, but it really would ruin the experience, I think, for a lot of athletes because, I mean, some of them, I see people, I still think anybody who claims last year's Ironman Roth as a PB, considering the bike course was literally confirmed 10K short, is a bit funny. But, like, yeah, I find it must be tough pill to swallow for a lot of people knowing that this happens. And this race was a fucking, like, genuinely just a bad situation. But again, don't put a race on. I don't know. I don't have an answer. But again, I'm just glad that everyone got to participate.
It's difficult. There've been so many deferrals and postponements over the last few years because of the antics of the world. I think in an ideal world, what they're trying to do is prevent having to give people their money back or give people a chance to defer to change to another race. Exactly, because I mean, in an ideal world, in my mind, you say to the people that were meant to be racing the Ironman, look, I'm sorry, the weather has ruled it out. We can't put you on the same day because the course will be too packed and it won't be a race. We need to give you a chance to defer to another race or get your money back. That would have been the answer for me. But obviously for them as an organization, the answer was, oh shit, we don't want to refund people. We'll give them the chance to race on the Sunday. So then we don't have to refund people. We don't have to change them to another race because we've done so much of that recently. We'll just pack the course. And once the course is packed like that, in my mind, you're going into these races expecting to race it as you always have a triathlon. And, I think your race experience could be ruined by that.
I was speaking with a brand. I can't remember. I've had that many meetings this week, and they were talking that they've heard, I don't think it's much of a secret, but I think COVID really hurt Ironman. And I have a feeling that I think that there are maybe a few corners being cut. This is not an example of that, but there's been a lot of races that probably had too many athletes in the fields because they are trying to recoup some of that lost revenue just to try to fix the situation that they found themselves in. And that's probably why we're finding more and more of these races that are traditionally, they're quickish, but they're not that quick, suddenly having these lightning fast bike splits. And it's because they're just squeezing more and more athletes onto the course to the point where, and again, it's interesting when you used to have the age group waves, which basically don't exist anymore, at least the groups would be smaller because, they'd start together and then the fast group riders from each group would sort of get together a little bit. Whereas now if you have everybody sort of self-seeding and the fast guys all go together, they're going to naturally all sit and the packs become bigger. And I think it's, they have to look at that they're doing.
I agree. I think, the obvious answer in my mind is if you are desperate for a real non-draft experience, look outside of Ironman for a minute. Look for different races, smaller races, races that are run.
Okay. I tell you the other thing that I think that if again, this is maybe lawyer Tim thinking a little bit out loud here, but at some point you'd have to assume Ironman are going, okay, we know this is like maybe they do have to just go, you know what, this race is it's draft legal. You can't ride a TT bike.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing that freaks me out. Watching that, I always get so nervous. Anytime I see a fucking triathlete on his aero bars in a pack, like every time I've run a training camp, the first thing is like, you do not ride your aero bars when you're in the group. If you want to go in your aero bars, that's fine. You go to the back and you sit off the back, or maybe you're on the front solo, but you do not sit in the group riding your aero. You cannot do it. And I see this footage of these people, and they're fucking. And I'm like, don't do it, mate. It's so dangerous. So I wonder maybe that's. Again, I can hear people already tweeting me, you can't, it's not draft legal, it's not the spirit of the sport at me already. But
but I mean, the spirit of the sport is also not those packs on the road, of people on their aero bars.
Exactly.
It's just, you're trying to find a solution to a problem that does exist. It's just not something I would enjoy. Do you know what I mean? I don't want massive,
you couldn't enjoy that.
Packed courses like that. It would just be rubbish.
Well,
so no.
I think it would be hideous. Anyway, the pro race, in a time of 8:37.22, Svenja Thos won the race. During the run, she was chased by two Swiss athletes, but the German Thos proved strong enough to claim victory, and silver and bronze went to Julie Darren and Joanna Ryder. And I don't really want to go into much detail, but basically, Thos won the race in 8:37.22. Darren was second in a time of 8:43.20 and Ryder third in 8:45.13. So again, congratulations to those women. I didn't see, I know it was broadcast, and this was because there was the men's only race in Wales a couple of weeks ago that Joe won. This is the same thing. There's now races where they have a male or female pro only race. Let's talk about another race that I did watch, and I hope you watched. I think you watched as well.
I did.
Which was a lot more exciting.
Yeah.
Super League Triathlon Malibu. Now, I got this little summary from John Levinson at Tri247, the great man. And I don't know, do you want to just talk through it, or do you want to go through? You can go through the summary. I think that's what we did the last few weeks. So I'll go through it.
We'll go through this.
Stage 1, challenging sea conditions meant a difficult start for the athletes, but Australian Emma Jeffcoat used her open water skills to exit the water first. But Janine Lahair sprinted up the beach and into transition to be the first onto the bike and take the short shoot. Onto the bike, and Lahair and Jeffcoat were joined by another two Scorpions, Taylor Brown and Jess Fulger. Come to the dismount line, however, there was a little bit of time between the majority of the field, with Fulger being first to start the run, which secured the second short shoot for the Scorpions. There's too many S sounds in that sentence. Taylor Brown was first to finish, blocking any further short shoots, as the Scorpions already had one. The unwelcome yellow flag, which shows elimination, was for Sarah Roll, Julie Behrens, and Hannah DeVeet. Stage 2 in the women's race, there was another Hawaii 5.0 style swim exit in stage 2, where Georgia Taylor Brown, Summer Rappaport, and Sian Rainsley would be first onto the bike. Drama early on the bike, though, with Georgia crashing out on a corner and also losing her chain in the process, losing around 40 seconds and putting herself at the risk of elimination. More incidents too, with Rainsley also crashing out on a corner, having suffered a front wheel puncture. Up the front, Rappaport was going full gas on the run with everything going on behind, trying to put herself and Team Cheetahs in prime position ahead of the final stage, which is a pursuit start based upon the combined times from the first two races. GTB did get back into the race, but the unlucky trio were Fulger, Jeffcoat, and Gina Serino, who all got eliminated. Stage 3, Spivey and Miriam Casillas started the final stage together, 10 seconds ahead of Arena Steinhauser, with Rappaport just behind. Lahair was next, 17 seconds behind, with Georgia Taylor Brown 22 seconds to make up. Spivey caught a wave brilliantly at the swim exit with a short shoot to start the bike solo. The Scorpions elected not to give that advantage to Georgia Taylor Brown. Now, I don't know if you heard, Mako was going off in commentary because MG gave the short shoot, not to GTV. I thought it was funny. That left Spivey starting the bike alone. Casillas and Rappaport also solo in second and third, with the chasing trio of Taylor Brown, Steinhauser, and Lahair covering fourth to sixth. Spivey could relax and finish in style for a home win. Casillas was also clear in silver, while Georgia Taylor Brown made the best of a bad day to complete the podium. So in first place, Taylor Spivey; second place, Miriam Casillas; third place, Georgia Taylor Brown; fourth place, Summer Rappaport; fifth place, Jean Lahair. What do you think of this race, mate?
I really enjoy this racing, mate. You know, we were both a bit not that excited by Super League before the Super League season started. I think it might be just sort of the gap between the championship series each year. You kind of go like, is it going to be any good? And it really is. And then
It's really
I
good.
love it when you add in the sea swimming and the waves and the catching waves, and they get that little boost. It's like the sea gives its own short shoot to various people if you can
It's
body
true.
surf. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love watching it happen. I love that advantage being taken when someone can body surf properly and get gain a bit of ground on the others. Real shame for Georgia Taylor Brown with her crash, because obviously she would be well up there, and she still is well up there in the series. It's not like have you read out the series standings yet?
Not yet. I was going to do that after we.
Okay, so I mean, she's still well up there in the series standings, but it's. I think it was exciting racing. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, same thing. I thought it was, again, I don't love the Malibu course because it looks like they're racing around a car park with like shopping trolleys. Sort of, it doesn't look Super League sharp. Like I think of the Jersey course or even the Munich course, and it always looks a little bit more streamlined. And this one literally looks like they're riding around a car park a little bit. But yeah, it's cool. And I really like that they made that final stage a pursuit style, because it meant that you couldn't just be like the first 10 just go through the motions, because I think last year it was similar, because remember we had Christian Blumenfeld like go off the front in that first one. People are like, what's he doing? It doesn't matter. Whereas this year it does fucking matter. And I like that there's this, you have to fucking push. You can't just set in and take it easy to the final stage. Like there's actually, again, there's sacrifice, or there's consequences for those first two performances. Yeah. Jeopardy. I'm sick of saying it, but I mean, seeing Georgia Taylor, I remember watching her go through that corner thing. Fucking hell, she took that hot. She went down, which is horrible. But it's funny how, because I will go through the series points. First place, Taylor Spivey, 42 points. Second place, Georgia Taylor Brown, 41 points. Third place, Sophie Caldwell, 38 points. Fourth place, Verena Steinhauser, 27 points. Fifth place, Miriam Casillas, 27 points. But it's always funny that when these little dramas happen, it like when Vince Louis had the puncture in Singapore that year, how it always seems to impact the championship lead just a little bit, just enough to create more drama.
Yeah.
But absolutely. I saw that crash and I was like, when I saw her take, I was like, fuck, she took that. She was a bit spicy through that corner, and she was. And then to see Sian Rainsley, who, we've definitely, we've been aware of Sian for a few years now, and to see her sort of having that progression this year, and this race, she seemed to be going quite well. To crash out like that was a disaster. You could see she was very upset about it. But Taylor Spivey,
last year that Georgia Taylor Brown had the slow motion crash into the soft bollard,
and it was the short shoot thing. Anyway, she missed. She took the short shoot that she didn't have, or so she made up the action and she got disqualified, and then she wasn't disqualified. Yeah, that was Jersey. Yes, fuck, it's always GTV.
But good racing, racing, and I still have Georgia Taylor Brown as my favourite for the series win on this one. She's dropped down to second place. She's 1 point behind Taylor Spivey, but I still see that quality. If she can keep it rubber side down, then I still see that quality bringing her to win this championship when they get to the final venue.
It's interesting though, because you look at Taylor Spivey, and I think I can't remember if we said it, but she came into that London race, and I was like, she looks like a woman possessed. Like there was an aggression to the way that Taylor was racing that I was like, I haven't seen that. So I think Taylor Spivey is an incredible athlete, but I've never seen a race with this intensity before. And I expected it, maybe it was just like, first race, she wants to make an impression, but she has been just fucking right up there every single race, mate. I think Taylor Spivey's been probably the most consistent. Obviously the crash doesn't help, but she's very good, and I think she definitely deserved this win. So it makes the whole thing quite interesting going into Toulouse, and not this weekend, next week. We have a week off this week. But yeah, it's good shit, mate.
I really
struggled to read through that women's race, so I might get you to take us through the men's one so I can have a breather.
All right, let me have a look. Where is the start of the men's race then? In the women's race, we saw Super League Triathlon Series leader Georgia Taylor.
That's right.
I paused that, didn't I? In the women's race, we saw Super League Triathlon Series leader Georgia Taylor Brown crash out on stage 2. But for the men, Hauser didn't even make it through stage 1 before he crashed out on exactly the same corner. Unfortunately for Hauser, unlike GTB, that would be the end of his day. Along with Chris Purnham and Davis Bove, the Eagles athlete was in the final 3 across the line and thus eliminated. With that, probably end his hopes of overall series success. Cameron Worth fell off the 90-second rule and was eliminated before even making it to the stage 1 finishing line. Super League racing takes no prisoners. I think I predicted that. Short shoots were won by the Eagles, Scorpions, and Sharks. On stage 2, Jamie Riddle and Tyler Reed led out of the ocean on stage 2. But Wild was more than 30 seconds back in 12th, leaving him with plenty of work to do on the bike and run. Reed went solo on the bike and would start the run 13 seconds clear of a group of 8 athletes. Wild, as seemingly always, had biked his way back into contention along with Tyler Miselchuk, Shazar Sagiv, Vasco Villarsa, Dan Dixon, Max Stapley, Chase McQueen, and Jamie Riddle. He may have been behind after the swim, but Wild was on a mission. He not only caught fellow Shark Reed, but pushed on to take the lead and just as race 1, take the win. Eliminated were Ryan Fisher, Miselchuk, and Maximilian Sperl. Stage 3, the pursuit start would see Wild kick off proceedings, followed 8 seconds later by Sagiv. Just 5 after that, Villarsa, Riddle, and Dixon would be chasing Wild. And Wild was quickly caught and was back down in 5th place as his feet hit the sand. Onto the bike, and Villarsa, Dixon, and Sagiv went clear by a few seconds, but it wasn't long before Wild hit the big watts and dragged Riddle along with him. McQueen Sue had made it 6 on the technical circuit next to the Pacific Coast Highway. Of the leading 6, only Riddle had a short shoot advantage to take, as he did in Munich. Villarsa went to the front in T2, but it was Sagiv who was first onto the run. Hayden quickly took the lead, but Sagiv was on his shoulder and looking really good, with Vasco trying not to let them pull away. As they went through the bell, with 800 metres to go, Wild upped his pace, and unlike Munich, he wouldn't be denied today. Winner in London, this would be his 2nd Championship Series title of the season. So the finishing positions were Hayden Wild in 1st place, Sakar Sagiv in 2nd, Vasco Villarsa in 3rd, Daniel Dixon in 4th, Jamie Riddle in 5th place. So another victory for Hayden Wild, mate. And I was gutted. I am gutted that Hauser crashed out because
he can't catch a break this year, can he? He can't catch a break, mate. He copped that bullshit penalty in London, and then I can crash out the way he did. It was devastating, actually, because again, I thought Hauser's got this. I thought he's my pick for this championship. I thought he's just a little bit sharper than Haydos, and fucking hell. And again, same corner as GTB. Different crash. I think GTB's back wheels spun out. He just sort of seemed to go down. But fuck, mate. That's brutal.
It's a real shame because it was the championship, much as it was last year, was between Hayden and Yi. This year it was shaping up to be between Hayden and Matthew Hauser. And I got a lot of time for both of those athletes. I really have. They're both really genuine good blokes. And I wanted to see that play out without the input of a crash or a mechanical or illness or injury. I wanted to see them race.
Hayden's probably tired, mate. He needs a week off. Maybe Hayden should just skip Toulouse, let Hauser have a free shot to try to get the points back up, and then have a proper hit out in Neom. One of the things I found very funny in the commentary was you could hear Chris saying that they told Cam Worth to try to get the fastest bike split because there's obviously the points. And after the race, they said he lost time. He actually lost time to the pack on the bike. And I'd seen a lot of people in the lead up saying, Cam will show these guys how to ride, or Cam will make a real difference on Cam will. It's like he literally lost. I think people fail to understand just how good these guys are at riding a bike. And I get Cam Worth, absolutely legend in the sport.
As I said last
week, his hand up.
As I said last week, if the swim didn't exist, we'd have seen an interesting addition to the bike ride, because in the group, a rider like Cam Worth working in a group could very well have made a big impact on that bike. But coming out behind on the swim, racing solo against
45
a group of
seconds
athletes,
down or something.
Yeah, racing solo against a group of very good triathlon cyclists who are working as a unit in a peloton. There ain't no one that's going to catch that. I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you're Miguel Indurain. Back in the day, you ain't.
You'd be doing it, James Bell. James Bell, if you put you in that race, you'd be fine. Like you held Javier Gomez to the first in Mallorca.
I think true. I mean, I would have come out the water 45 seconds behind, but I would have been leading into T2.
Exactly. Yeah. But again, just put that into perspective. 300-meter swim to go 45 seconds. That's 15 seconds per 100 slower. I love it. I think again, and he knows. He's like, I was fucked. As soon as I looked up and they're fucking gone, he's like, I've made a huge error. But it was awesome. But Hayden Wild's got this thing in the bag, mate. I don't think unless something very wild happens, maybe he crashes out in the grand final and Hauser gets the double points or something.
We'll
it's
see, but the overall championship standings are Hayden Wilde in first place with 43 points. Second place, Vasco Velasquez with 32 points. Third place, Matthew Hauser with 29 points. Fourth is Taylor Reid with 27 points. Now, 43 to 29. He's got to make up a deficit of 14 points. It's not undoable, but with the form that Hayden's showing, it's not looking too likely.
Did you hear the interview with Ryan Fisher after he'd been eliminated? He was calling him Mike Tyson. He's like, I was swimming next to Mike Tyson out to the buoy, and he kept smacking me in the face. I love that new nickname for Hayden Wilde. Hayden, Mike Tyson Wilde. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I really enjoyed this race, and I think Vasco Velasquez is another guy who is so good. And the thing that I watched this and I scratched my head about. And I was talking with Chris about this week. Matt Macca, and I was saying I don't get why the guys ahead don't like. To me, all you have to do in this race is get out of the water ahead of Hayden, right? You get out of the water ahead of Hayden, and then you fucking wait for him to come because he's going to the front, and you just jump on his wheel. You just jump on that wheel and you take the toe to the front. Like, to me, that's what. Again, I couldn't do it if my life depended on it, but it seems. Like, I don't understand. Is he that much better on the bike than everybody? They literally can't hold his wheel, or like, what is it? Because he was 30 seconds down at one point or something, and he's still just fucking boom straight to the front. Like, come on, guys, jump on his wheel, just take the toe.
I think it's probably a sensible choice, but everyone is racing their own race, aren't they, in their head, and they're trying to stay ahead. And once you've got someone like Hayden chasing you, the objectives in their minds is probably to stay ahead. So they're probably burning all their matches at that point, instead of, sitting back and allowing the catch to happen and then jumping on the wheel. It's a difficult call to make.
We didn't talk about the team standings because I don't care about the teams. But first place, we've got to change. So now the Sharks are moving to first place at 235 points. The Cheetahs have moved into second place with 216 points. The Scorpions have dropped down to third place. Fourth place is the Rhinos. And fifth place is Tim Don's Eagles with 178 points. Mate, we have a very large next segment of the show. So what do we call that segment?
Welcome to the Down Low on the PTO. Now, Mr. Ford, I know you're chomping at the bit for this because you loved this race, didn't you? And you've got so much to say. But what I'll do is I'll go through
the races first.
And then we'll chat about it. I borrowed these summaries from friend of the podcast, Tim Henning, on 220 Triathlon magazine. The unheralded Ironman Mont Tremblant champion beat Denmark's Magnus Ditlev in Dallas, with Sam Long making it 2 US triathletes on the podium. USA's Colin Chartier delivered a perfectly judged race to beat Denmark's Magnus Ditlev and compatriot Sam Long to win the inaugural PTO US Open in Dallas. In a career-best performance he described as definitely the race of my life, the 28-year-old PTO ranked number 28 shocked a star-studded lineup to scoop the $100,000 first prize as Ditlev overtook Long within the final kilometre to grab second place. Chartier, who finished 11th in the PTO Canadian Open in July, stopped the clock in 3:17.17, 42 seconds clear of the Dane. Sam Laidlow, who led through the first half of the bike, held on to fourth, with Germany's Florian Angert, who was leading on the run, in fifth. Those lining up for the 2-kilometre swim, 80-kilometre bike, and 18-kilometre run in Texas included big hitters such as Lionel Sanders, Daniel Beckengard, Rudy Von Berg, with Britain represented through wildcard Tom Bishop. This is with Alistair Brownlee not racing. In the swim, Royal led into T1, followed by a stream of 20 athletes, including Bishop, with Canute first out onto the 80-kilometre bike leg. On the bike, Laidlow took charge for the first half of the 80-kilometre bike, with Angert for company. Behind them, feared cyclists Ditlev and Long, who was 35th out of the water, were moving through the field to within 90 seconds. It remained tight through the less than 3 minutes separating the top 20 or so triathletes on the flat 7-lap course. Angert broke away from Laidlow with 20 kilometres to go on the bike to take a 40-second lead to T2, followed by Long, Ditlev, Chartier and Laidlow as the race finally started to break up. Run. First to strike was Long, who showed his intentions with the fastest transition and then ran down Angert within the first 3 kilometres. Ditlev wasn't losing any time on the leader and soon moved into second, but Chartier, who's been training with Sanders in Arizona and now shares the same coach in Norway's Mikkel Eden, was looking threatening as he moved into third with both Ditlev and Long in his sights. into the second half of the run, and it appeared a three-way shootout between the trio, with Anger and Laidlow running in fourth and fifth, but losing time to the front. Approaching the last 5 kilometers, it was Chartier who moved into the shoulder of his fellow American to take the lead. For the first time, it didn't look back as he extended his advantage to the finish. Ditlev closed in on Long and managed to take the pass just before the line. So Chartier was in first, Ditlev in second, and Sam Long in third place, rounding off the podium. Men's race, Mr. Ford. What did you think of this race?
Again, I think it probably went a little bit different. I wouldn't have picked Colin Chartier, would never have been my pick. I'm happy to admit that. I thought he raced incredibly. He looked so good on the run. Sam Long to come, I think he was literally last out of the water to ride his way through the pack the way he did. And then to run, he ran really strong, but definitely seemed to fade a little bit at the back end. Was impressive. Again, I think he even referred to himself as a duathlete, and I think that's the thing. If Sam could just work out his swim a little bit, like we're not even talking about getting up to the level of it, just a little bit, it would make such a difference for him. Just because I just look at the way he's been, and I can't help but wonder if he could just be a bit more competitive in the swim, the effort that he's using to catch up, how much better could he run if he didn't have to do that? Magnus, I mean, what can we say? Magnus is the inform athlete. He is fucking red hot, mate. And he looked so cool, calm, and collected. He never looked in distress. He didn't seem to give a shit about what was happening. He just did his own race and was excellent. Some people that I was really surprised by was Lionel. I guess I thought I rate Lionel so much at the shorter distance. I think he's so good at 70.3. I think it was 20th or 21st. Daniel Beckergaard, I also, we rate Daniel so highly.
We do.
I was surprised to see him. I was surprised to see him drop. I think he was not even maybe 10th. I can't remember at the top of my head. But yeah, it was a race.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm reading these summaries out, and I do know the results and how it played out, but I didn't watch it live. So I think what we'll do is I'll do the summary for the women's race, and then we can talk about outside of the racing itself and the results. We'll talk about the aesthetic and the package that was delivered by the PTO for these events.
Ashley listeners might want to sit down and get some popcorn, Matt, because I have some thoughts.
Ashley Gentle takes dramatic win at PTO US Open. This is 220 triathlon again, but Rob slayed this time. So the writing's probably a bit better for this one than Tim's.
That's brutal.
Charles Barkley's
friend of the podcast, Tim Henning.
Charles Barkley's decision to stick with a tri-suit looked to give her the edge in transition, with Nib having to strip her swim skin before moving on. She eventually left T1 some 16 seconds down. A large chase pack eventually emerged from T1, with the chase pack about a minute back. On the bike, Nib quickly caught up with Charles Barkley and surged past the Brit just 5 kilometers into the leg. Nib's lead continued to grow over the remainder of the 80-kilometer bike leg, with both Charles Barkley and the rest of the chasers losing time. The chasing pack gradually became more strung out, with Lawrence, Duffy, De Beers, Finley, Norden breaking away from the rest of them. With 30 kilometers to go, they were sitting 3.32 back from Nib, with Charles Barkley just a minute up the road. By the end of the bike, that gap to Charles Barkley had grown to 3:37, while Lawrence, Duffy, Finley, and Norden arrived into T2 just over 6 minutes down on Nib. As expected on the run, Duffy quickly found her rhythm in third, and at the 4-kilometer mark was running at a quicker pace than the two women ahead of her. But soon she had Gentle for company. The Australian, who's shown great form on the run leg this year, made her move 5 kilometers into the run and started chasing down Charles Barkley. Gently wasn't just about to settle for second, though, and set about her task with laser focus. She was given encouragement too, with all of Nib's efforts seemingly catching up with her and affecting her pace, so much that she even slowed to a walk at one point. The gap was dropping, and fast. With just 4 kilometers remaining, it dropped to just under a minute. Could Nib hold on? Gentle answered the question in emphatic fashion, storming past Nib with just a couple of kilometers to go and stretching away into the distance for the winner time of 3:37.18, which is smoking fast. Now, you had been, when Ashley Gentle took the step up to longer course racing, you were touting her as, she's going to be the next big thing. And I was a little bit like, is she though? And I'm beginning to eat my words a little bit, and it's irritating me.
That run, mate, was fucking next level. This race, to me, there's a lot of things that I think were not polished in this race. Like Lucy Charles, you can tell she's obviously not been racing for because she made a lot of she did a lot of little things wrong. I think like, the footage of her trying to put a bottle in her cage on the back of the bike was very difficult to watch. She had to stop because there was something wrong with the shift. I thought it was, but I don't think it was. I just think it was very flat. And anyway, it looked upside down when I was watching. It looked like that thing was the bottom, but my bike guy Sweeney told me I was wrong. But then she had to pull over for another reason with the bike. Taylor Knibb, you can tell she's come back from injury because she didn't look like Taylor Knibb has a certain look when she races, and she just looked sloppy on the run. She didn't look good at any point. I know running fast and looking good isn't always the same thing, but she really looked in distress to me during that run. And, she was walking at points. She was walking, shaking her head. But fucking hell, mate, Ash Gentle, God damn it. Like, what did she run, like 7 minutes or something? It's fucking phenomenal. And yeah, I just think I read in something today that she's not going to be racing 70.3 Worlds because it clashes with a wedding, which I'm devastated about. Like, because I think my big prediction at the start of the year was she was going to win 70.3 Worlds. I guess that's not going to happen. But man, she is so good. Fucking hell, she can run like the clappers. And I mean, you consider, just incredible. Flora Duffy, I would have expected to be a bit better. But again, like second, she's not really had much of a chance to focus on this. And I know she's now focused on 70.3 Worlds.
Yeah. I mean, she's had, a lot. She's done a lot. She was my pick for the win, again, I think, wasn't she? But, it's not surprising that the performance is still there. The quality is there. But, she'll be, like you say, she'll be focused on the 70.3 Worlds and building up towards that now.
I mean, it was great to see Lisa Norden perform the way she did. I think, we've always, expected a lot from Lisa, and to be 40 years old and to do that, very, very good. But yeah, mate, it was Ash Gentle for me. And again, like I said at the start, you think about all those, those names we're talking about at the front of the race, Taylor Knibb, Ashley Gentle, Flora Duffy, Holly Lawrence, Paula Finlay. We're talking about the 70.3 athletes or the shorter middle distance athletes. Lucy Charles-Barclay is also doing Kona. She was the only one right up there. The other athletes we know that are going to Kona weren't up there. Shows that she is back where she belongs at the pinnacle of the sport. Yeah, that's it.
I think that's a good summary. Now, let's get outside of the racing and the athletes. What did you think? Because I didn't watch this. I didn't watch it live, and I haven't seen many of the replays. I've seen snippets on social media. What was the experience like from a broadcast perspective, from a fan perspective, from an audience perspective? The pre-show, the live show itself, the after show. What was it? Was it the sort of super high quality we have come to expect and demand from the PTO? What was it like, Vordo?
It wasn't great, to be honest. I really did not enjoy this viewing experience very much, to be honest, for a lot of reasons. I think it's very hard to sit here and I don't necessarily have the answers, but I found there was no one there. I even watched the highlights again before we record. I watched the highlights again just to like refresh things in my mind, and it just looks depressing to me, mate. I found it so depressing to watch because it literally looked like, the PTO, the US Open. It's here we are in Dallas, and there's no one watching, and they're riding around empty streets and what looks like a house in a state, much like we complained about Edmonton last year, or even the PTO Edmonton. There was nothing inspiring about this course. The course looked really shit to me. Like, it was narrow, and I thought the course was awful. And again, I shouldn't say the broadcast isn't bad. The broadcast is what you expect a triathlon broadcast to be, but they didn't promise what triathlon broadcasting is. They promised to go above.
That is the problem, isn't it, in itself?
And they have absolutely not delivered on that promise. Like, no, where's the heart rate and the power data? Where's all this stuff? I mean, I think Vicky Holland and Belinda Granger in commentary are excellent. I think they're phenomenal. But I found the race confusing. I didn't always find it easy to follow. And I mean, I put out a tweet today asking a poll about should they be eliminating lapped athletes? And I know that I found out later they were doing it on the bike. But there was a point during the women's race specifically where if you had to talk about the best runners in the sport, I would say Ash Gentle and Tamara Jewett is another one who is, we know is a very, very, very good runner. And there's a point during the race where Tamara Jewett was running with Ashley Gentle, and I'd sort of flicked and I changed. I was like, holy shit, where's Christ almighty, I knew Tamara Jewett was a good runner, but I didn't realize that she was that good. And it's like, oh no, she's a fucking lap behind Ashley Gentle. And I'm like, that's fucked. Like, there's so many little things that I just don't like. Like, I really feel like I really want to see them put in eliminations like Super League, like have a time limit, do some things. And I've spoken with a lot of pros and non-pros and stuff this week. And I feel like the problem we have with the PTO, and I'll talk about the men's race too, but the problem with the PTO is this an athlete-led organization who's trying to do things for the athletes? Or is this about making a properly sustainable and financially stable broadcast package? Because I feel like sometimes those two are opposed.
Yeah,
because in conversations I have with some pros, because I've been, for example, I was having a conversation today with someone about they need to bring in eliminations and lap outs, and they said if you did that, only 20 people would have finished the race. And I'm like, yeah, good. Like, I think that shows to me that then let's just have 20 people do the race and take that prize money you pay those 20 people and make it a 20-person race. And then all that other prize money that is basically a handout at this point, fucking put that into a BT race or a second division race. And then, because if you're not, like in Kona or like at any other event, if you're not in that top few athletes, you're not getting any, you don't see the race unfold. You don't see the guys from back in the men's race. Jason West, fastest run split of the day. We talk about if we had have brought in the lapped out rule or the time gap rule, he wouldn't have been able to do the run. Yeah, but him being in the race didn't add anything to me as a spectator. I didn't even know he was having the fastest run until the commentator said, oh, Jason West is running pretty well. He ran the fastest run split. Because they're not working out how to show or tell the story, because all they do, like every triathlon, is show the people at the front. And that's about it. Like, I just feel like there is a massive dichotomy, it's a fancy word, or a contrast or a conflict between, are we trying to make it fair and lucrative for the athletes? And I said this after the Edmonton race. You could have taken everybody else out of that race except for Christian Gustav, and it would have been just as entertaining. I don't understand why they're paying all this money deep when it's not adding anything to the spectacle. Like, that's the problem, and that's where I really am starting to go, I just don't think this is working, because I didn't find the broadcast exciting. I didn't find, Ash Gentle doing her thing was great, but it still wasn't like close racing. The men's race was okay, but again, it was literally, you saw the front few people and you didn't really see anything that happened at back. I saw flickers, I saw little moments of Lionel, to the point where, because I know Daniel's good, and I was watching the weird splits that they have that don't really display things properly. And it showed the top 10 and Daniel wasn't there. I was like, the fuck's happened to Daniel Beckergut? Like, he's absolutely a top 10 athlete, but nobody knows and you don't find out. And then and again, I was on another website to check the tracker, because it was the only way that I could get accurate, ideas of what was actually happening was through the Obsessed Triathlete. Again, guys, I can't recommend this website. If you want to follow a professional race like easily, go there. It's great. I really can't recommend High Life. It's the easiest way to follow a race now. Like, just whatever they're doing, PTO, just plug that into your broadcast. Just literally just copy that and put it in, because I just don't get it anymore, mate. Like, it's that case of, I'm sitting here going, no, come on, because I really want the PTO to do well. I'm like, no, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. Oh, they didn't. Okay, well, maybe next time. Oh, they didn't. Okay, maybe next time. Oh, no, they didn't. Like, it's funny to me that you have these races that got these huge deep fields, and we hear, and again, I'm also sick of hearing about the fucking prize purse. I don't give a shit that I'm sick of hearing about the prize purse. Like, I understand it's important for the pro athletes, but as a spectator, I don't particularly care how much the fucking prize money is. It's irrelevant to me as a spectator. But, like, you have these deep fields, and then they only show the front three. But then you have a race like the Collins Cup where you've got these 1v1v1 races, and you don't ever really see the front three, like all those 3-person races very well. I find that quite funny. It's like, take what you're doing at the PTO Tour races and broadcast the individual races that way, so we can actually see the action, as opposed to there's all the jump in at the Collins Cup. They need to almost swap the way they broadcast the races, if that makes sense. Like, swap around a lot at the PTO Tour, and then stay on the individual races longer at the Collins Cup. Like, and it looked like, again, just little things like the signage looked crap to me, and things like, there was a point where I think it was the men's race where Sam Long was coming into transition for one of his, I think the end of his first lap, and there's cyclists coming on the bike. I'm like, well, that's not safe. Like, fuck off. If you're literally a lap behind the guys, just run a lap, get off the course. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, mate. They just
I think when you're seeing something like Super League, where they condense the field down as the race goes on, so you don't get those lap to moments, you don't get those slower athletes moving around the course. They're constantly refining it down to the peak to make that broadcast experience as good as it possibly can be, rather than sort of saying, well, we'll let everybody finish the race because we're all triathletes here. It's like, no, make it for the broadcast first, and then build off that. It's probably the most important thing.
And the reason I think something like the elimination or the lap out thing, like, imagine, let's say it's like, let's literally take the elimination concept from Super League and apply it to PTO. Because this was 7 lap on the bike, 4 lap run and the 2 lap swim. Swim, you're probably not going to get lapped out, but you've got the laps, plus you've got the lap out and time distance, and maybe the last 4 or 5 people automatically. If you had the last 5 people who get eliminated automatically after each discipline, Sam Long, gone. Doesn't get to do the bike and run. Okay? But if you're also like, let's say a race where you've got the Norwegians, like, people are going to start racing the race differently. If you've got a Sam Long who's a shit swimmer, you're going to push to eliminate him because he's a threat on the bike and run. Like, I feel like it would completely change the dynamic of the race for the spectators. That it is exciting because it doesn't mean I can just race my race. I actually have to, like, there's more strategy that comes into play. And the argument that, but that's not what triathlon is about. I'm not saying we need to change every triathlon on the planet to be this model. I'm saying let's try it. Like, and it doesn't stop this, again, just like with Sub 7, just like with Super League, it doesn't mean the things that you like or you like to, if you like, if you're listening and you like to sit down for an afternoon and watch a 5-hour 70.3 broadcast, or you enjoyed watching Dallas, I'm very, very happy for you. And I'm not saying we have to eliminate that and not make that available to people, but I'm saying they need to try something different if they're going to make this as a proper broadcast. Because if I was a lay person who didn't if I was a muggle who didn't care about triathlon and I turned this on, I would have turned it off so fucking quickly because it was, I mean, I'll be honest. I told you, mate, you said, I haven't watched it. I said, don't bother, mate.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Don't
it's
bother.
The intensity. They need to create intensity and it's not been created. And you're right. Like, it's not about saying this isn't what triathlon's about. Because right now, where triathlon is not
working.
Big enough to be a broadcastable, entertaining sport. So what triathlon is about right now won't work in that manner. So it needs to shift into a more exciting, something that's going to capture the imagination of people. My main question right now, though, Tim, is probably one you could answer: is what is a muggle?
A non-magic person out of Harry Potter.
Okay, cool. No, nice.
Okay.
Never seen a muggle.
Like a person who doesn't know about triathlon is what I was referring to.
Cool.
Yeah, I really, like I said, we have literally a segment of our podcast dedicated to the PTO. We want the PTO to work. And I know that these guys, like, they listen, they want to make things better. I'm underwhelmed this year. The 3 races that we've seen this year have, like, and again, the problem is that they're overpromised, they've yet to deliver. And then you've got things like, and again, maybe I'm biased, but I thought Sub was fucking excellent. I thought the broadcast at Sub was excellent, which shows you can broadcast a long course race and do it well. I think Super League do an excellent job. And the thing is, I still think the PTO, when they did that PTO race in Daytona, I was like, fucking hell, they're on, this is the path. Do this, not different, better. Just keep evolving this model, this format, just keep going with it, make it a bit better each time, not to go, we're going in a completely different direction. And it's I think the reason I'm fucking going on about it for so long is because I want it to work, because I want to see the sport work as a broadcast thing that people sit down and go, I wouldn't mind watching. I mean, I saw Brad Culp in his thing talk about this. The PTO US Open was put on a Sunday afternoon, and apparently in America, every Sundays, everybody watches the NFL. It's like Sunday football. So they even put the race on the same time as the biggest sporting event. Like, we're talking about getting eyeballs on this. Maybe don't put it on like that. It's weird things like that I just makes me shake my head and just go, what the fuck is happening? Because watching the ceremony at the end,
you're still going. This is epic. Tune into the MX Endurance podcast for a 10-minute rant from Tim Ford.
Fucking hell! Like, there's you've got the champagne ceremony with Sam Magnus and Colin, and there's like 15 people watching, and it was like depressing. And the fact that on the race, while the race is happening, you can be, that's Josh Amberger, Ashley Gentle's partner. Oh, that's Mikel Eden, Colin Chartier's coach. Oh, like I can spot the people because there's so few spectators on course that you can tell who they are. Oh, there's Talbot Cox running with his camera. You can tell who they are because there's 15 people watching the event. There was a wedding photo session taking place on the other side of the canal as Colin and that were running past. There's literally a photo of this bride having a photos taken while there's a fucking triathlon happening in the background. Can you imagine that? Let's say it's the Tour de France or something.
Yeah.
F1. Do you reckon there's going to be a fucking bride standing on the side of the course having a wedding photo? Unless she's a diehard F1 fan. I just don't get it, mate. I don't know. They've got to do something different. They have to.
Because in my head, man, I can see fucking amazing courses, over mountains,
cobblestones,
tremendous
climbs.
Yeah. Put a bit of a ride in through Roubaix or something like that, where you've got the cobbles of northern France, or you're down in the mountains somewhere. These epic visages of just tremendous sights and sounds to see what the races are doing something different. It all just looks a bit industrial estate-y to me all the time, and
it's hideous. It's grey and disgusting and boring and fucking shit. I hate it. I hate where all three races have been in shit venues. Every single one of them has just been shit. You can't tell where the fuck is what. You don't know what the hell is happening. It's I don't want to. I've ranted. I've ranted so much, and I'm sorry. But
we're running over time.
I'm really
And
disappointed.
I must say, as a very micro example of growing the sport and trying to get new eyes to watch it, me and you are a very small example of that. You watched the race. I text you, said I haven't watched it yet. You said don't bother. Multiply that across the population. What you want people to be saying is, fucking hell, you didn't watch it yet? It was amazing. You've got to watch that race.
Get on it.
Yeah. Before it gets spoiled for you.
They've got to keep the gaps closer. They've got to put in things that stop these races having 5-minute gaps. And I'm sick of seeing people by themselves. I'm sick of it just being one person on the bike. I'm sick of it. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to. I don't know how you do it. I don't know whether you have I don't know whether you do. I don't know. Gimmicks. I don't know what it is, but it's not this. I'm sorry. This isn't it. This isn't working for me, at least. And again, maybe I'm in the minority, but I found it extremely lackluster. And I was enough. If you want to hear me continue to rant about this, but not on the podcast, you can go behind the paywall and go to mxendurance.com/podcast, where I will continue to rant as I do. I think during most races, during that WhatsApp group, I've just been like, this is I'm struggling to follow this race.
I mean, for only the small cost of $10, Tim will leave you a $10 voicemail ranting.
Anybody who wants to ask me my thoughts on the thing, I will happily answer you. But you also get bonus episodes. I'm doing one with Chris this weekend. Partner discounts. We just signed Pillar Performance as a partner. We were in discussions with the new nutrition brand. Whole bunch of benefits. We're going to be doing our race team at the end of this year because of the change we're making. So if you are wondering why we haven't put out our applications, that is coming later in the year. So get excited for that. And again, there's going to be a whole bunch of new reasons to come and join our race team, which will be good. But you might as well join our podcast membership in the interim, mxendurance.com/podcast. It gets us to places like Kona. So maybe if we had a few more people, you'd be coming with me. Keeps us doing the podcast, supports us, all that good stuff. $10 a month or $3.40 if you're doing an annual plan. James, if they want to find out other things, where do they go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. Really helps us out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. If you got any suggestions, guests, comments, or criticisms, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
I mean, mate, fucking hell. Cam Worth went and did a Super League race instead of the PTO race. What the fuck? Something is seriously not working. You know what I mean?
He went and did a Super League race badly instead of the PTO race as well, didn't he?
I just don't get it. I really am. I'm scratching my head.
Cards? How much do you get paid as a wild card? Hey? Is it worth? I don't know. It's an interesting one. But on we go, lurching from one disappointment to another. Welcome to Triathlon.
God. Come on. It has to... fuck. I don't know, James Bell, mate. I'm going to have to think about this. We need to stop this because I'm a bit depressed after this. So I'll talk to you next week.
Cheerio.